Did the Pentagon cover up for a mystery disease that incapacitated the U.S. Secretary of Defense? I ask this question tonight because a scandal has broken out in the White House, a scandal involving the U.S. Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin. You see, last week, Austin was secretly hospitalized. What was this mystery illness that led to his hospitalization? Well, we do not know, but for days, key figures, including U.S. President Joe Biden and the Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks, were kept uninformed about the hospitalization of the U.S. Defense Secretary. Let that sink in. And this delay in informing key individuals about Austin's hospitalization has sparked a major debate. The issue, after all, is about transparency, about protocol in such high-level health crises. And it also raises concerns about the U.S. president's level of involvement in the day-to-day affairs. Why does it matter, you ask? Well, it matters because Lloyd Austin, or the U.S. Defense Secretary, is the second in command for the U.S. military. His duties require immediate availability in the case of a national security crisis, including potential nuclear attacks. And if he is admitted to the hospital, it affects his ability to perform these duties naturally. Therefore, if the U.S. Defense Secretary is not well and has to be hospitalized, it is imperative that the U.S. President is informed. Before I go any further, let me tell you how this entire saga actually played out. According to reports, on the 22nd of December, Austin was hospitalized following severe pain after an elective medical procedure. By New Year Eve, he had to be taken to the intensive care unit. And by the 2nd of January, the Deputy Defense Secretary, Kathleen Hicks, assumed some of Austin's operational duties. However, she was only informed about Austin's condition 2 days later, on the 4th of January, along with President Biden and other government officials. On Monday, that is the 8th of January 2024, he was moved out of the ICU, but he remains under supervision. But the entire episode has ignited a firestorm. Democrats as well as Republicans have called for accountability. They have criticized the lapse in traditional protocol. They have demanded an explanation. Why was Austin's condition not disclosed to the key figures? Lawmakers have expressed serious concern about the communication breakdown and the lack of transparency from the Pentagon. Austin himself has commented on the situation. He said he takes full responsibility for the secrecy of his hospitalization. He also acknowledged the need for better public knowledge regarding his health. Amid the criticism, the White House rejected Republican calls for Biden to sack Austin. On Monday, a White House official said that Biden is not considering firing Austin. The White House press secretary said, and I'm quoting, "The president continues to have confidence in Secretary Austin. The number one thing is we want to see him get well and back at the Pentagon." Yet, questions continued to surface. Some lawmakers expressed concern and slammed Austin for showing unbelievably bad judgment. And the White House, it seems, knows that this lapse in judgment reflects poorly on the administration. Officials in the White House and the Pentagon, in fact, have vowed to review the lapses in communication. And Austin, on his part, has resumed his duties on Friday night from the Walter Reed Hospital, where he is admitted. You must have heard of the famous saying, "Life finds a way." Well, nothing justifies that saying better than the story I'm about to tell you now. It's an extraordinary story. An incident from the US has left marine scientists surprised. The story is from the US, off the coast of Florida. A shark regrew a section of its dorsal fin a year after it was torn away in a traumatic injury. In June 2022, the scientists had attached a satellite tag on the shark's fin to track its migration pattern. However, a month or so later, a marine biologist, Chelsea Black, received a call from a local diver who saw the shark's tag along a section of the appendage missing, and the researchers were immediately alerted. They speculated that the shark either got caught during fishing, or one of the most plausible explanations being that humans removed the tag using a sharp object. The real reason is not known at the moment, but Chelsea Black has doubts that whoever did this to help the shark. She says she did not expect to see the shark again. The shark's injury was extensive, and with the tag gone, there was no way to actually track the animal. Naturally, when the shark showed up a year later, scientists were pleasantly surprised to see it with its fin. Very few animals have the capability to regenerate their body parts. Sharks, most definitely, do not fall under this category. And this has left scientists intrigued. The shark's so-called super healing abilities were published in the Journal of Marine Sciences. The study notes that while fin repair in sharks is rather common, rarely is it full repair. In this case, about 87% of its fin actually grew back. And this is the first time researchers have observed a silky shark regrowing its dorsal fin. And according to the study, this is the only second recorded case of fin regeneration in any shark. Indeed, nature always finds a way to surprise us. Our next story is about Israel's most high-profile casualty in the Gaza war. Edan Ahmedi, an Israeli singer, songwriter and actor famous for starring in Netflix's iconic show Fodder. According to reports, Ahmedi has been seriously injured in Gaza Strip's Khan Yunis city. He was fighting there as an Israeli Defense Force reservist. That is when he suffered injuries in an attack. And last we checked, he had been airlifted to a hospital and was receiving treatment. Reports from the Israeli media have also cited Ahmedi's father, who has confirmed the injury. Ahmedi's cousin also wrote about the injury on Instagram and prayed for his speedy recovery. Now, for the unversed, the 35-year-old actor was born and brought up in Jerusalem. He's currently serving as a real-life IDF reservist in the Combat Engineering Corps. On the 12th of October, 5 days after Hamas launched that brutal attack, Ahmedi was one among thousands of reservists who joined the war. He said he did so to protect the children, families and homes of his fellow Israelis. Interestingly, Ahmedi is not the only one currently serving in the IDF. There are a host of other renowned Israelis who have joined Israel's reserve forces, and this includes the likes of social media influencer and journalist Hanania Naftali, former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, and for the actor Lior Raz, besides several Israeli citizens living abroad. They are all fighting this war, which has entered day 94. It's been a total of 94 days since this war has started. What's the latest from on the ground? Well, besides the fighting, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is touring the region for a week of shuttle diplomacy. Have a look at these visuals. They are from Saudi Arabia. Speaking to reporters from the tarmac as he departed the Sheikhdom, Blinken said that leaders across West Asia are determined to prevent a wider conflict. Listen to this.
Everywhere I went, I found leaders who were determined to prevent the conflict that we're facing now from spreading, doing everything possible to deter escalation, to prevent a widening of the conflict. The future of the region needs to be one of integration, not division and not conflict. And fourth, for that to happen, we need to see the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. Now, no one I talk to thinks any of this will be easy. all recognize the hurdles, and no one thinks that anything will happen overnight. But we agreed to work together.
And from Saudi Arabia, Blinken left for Israel. He landed in Tel Aviv last night following multiple stops in West Asia. He was welcomed by the U.S. ambassador to Israel. His first meeting was with Israel's president, and during that meeting, Herzog spoke about a lawsuit filed at the ICJ accusing Israel of genocide against Palestinians. The lawsuit in question has been brought by South Africa and will be subjected to hearings this week. Herzog called the lawsuit atrocious and preposterous.
On Thursday, a proceeding will start in the International Court of Justice in The Hague, whereby South Africa has sued Israel for supposedly genocide. There's nothing more atrocious and preposterous than this claim. Actually, our enemies, the Hamas, in their charter, call for the destruction and annihilation of the State of Israel, the only nation state of the Jewish people.
And lastly, Blinken also met with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv for talks over the war in Gaza. Details of what transpired during the meeting are yet to emerge. Meanwhile, back in Washington, D.C., U.S. President Joe Biden has issued a statement. He says he is working with Israel to reduce the presence of the IDF in Gaza. He said this during a church event in South Carolina. And during that event, Biden's speech was interrupted by a handful of protesters calling for a ceasefire. Responding to the protesters, Biden said, and I'm quoting, "I understand their passion, and I have been quietly working with the Israeli government to get them to reduce and significantly get out of Gaza, using all I can to do." But Biden's statement does not really match the reality on the ground. According to reports, forget dying down, the war is only expanding, especially along the Israel-Lebanon border. In fact, things are so bad that Biden has dispatched his top aides to West Asia to prevent a full-blown war from erupting between Israel and Hezbollah. You see, U.S. officials are concerned that Netanyahu may see an expanded fight in Lebanon as key to his political survival. Will he do so? Will he really try to expand this war? Well, if Israel's American allies think so, then there must be some merit in the claims.